General Quarters.
Hey everyone, this is Bean, and I've created a review of our clan battles practice that we had on October 31st for the Adopt Bravo team. Using clips from the practice, I'm going to show to you guys what we talked about during the practice. I'm going to point out some things that went right, some things that went wrong. The main focus of our practice was about kiting. We were trying to teach players when to kite and how to kite, as well as how to shoot kiting boats. We also touch on a few topics that we noticed throughout the practice, things like communication, focus firing, positioning, overextending, and a couple other things that you'll see throughout the video. For those players who are not familiar with the concept of stern tanking or kiting, it is where you want to have the rear of your ship, the stern of your ship, facing towards the action. This allows you to very easily exit the situation. You do not have to turn broadside. You do not have to worry about getting stuck in a forward position. It allows you to just hit the W key and distance yourself from the enemy ships. This is a very powerful strategy. It's used by players in randoms as well as most teams in clan battles and King of the Seas. It allows their boats to get out of a bad position without taking huge losses to their health, without losing players. It allows the main flank to either reinforce them or to achieve another objective that may win the game. It also allows them to inflict damage back as they're pushing out of that situation. They also have the option sometimes of going dark, so that way they just stop getting shot at. The enemy team gets frustrated and will give up on them as well. Here's an example of stern tanking. We have an enemy force pushing in on us, and I have the aft of my ship backing into action. I'm maintaining a distance. I'm in a Hindenburg, so I want to keep about 12 kilometers distance as a minimum, and I am actively shooting a designated target with my team. And as they start focusing me, I start to put it in forward motion and I start to increase distance. At times I can go dark if needed to. It makes it very hard for them to maintain focus fire. It makes it very hard for a pushing team to actually successfully kill a boat, and it will cost them more health than what it's worth to continue that chase. Setting up for stern tanking and kiting away is something that takes practice and experience. You need to have a good idea of when you're going to be spotted, at what positions you can be radared, as well as possibly have a spotter out in front of you, because if you're not ready stern tanking when you get spotted, having to make that turn broadside to an enemy team can be very detrimental to the objective of the game. As you're going to see here, I got spotted when I was in a very bad position. I was almost nose into the enemy team. I have to go broadside to them, and they make me pay for it. From here on, I can't really be an effective pushing force because it takes very little effort now to kill me. So I am now more of a liability to my team than an asset. Here we'll show an example from our alpha team of how to do this properly. Our Zhao comes in at a safer distance. He makes his turn before there's any chance of something rushing around the corner to detect him. He turns and then he proceeds to back into his position. Now he could just keep backing up until he is where he's at or until he makes contact, but he is essentially ready to kite away if a big force comes around that corner. An important topic is keeping stealth while you're getting into position. I'm going to show you here with a clip from Grusky exactly why it is important to keep concealment while you're in vulnerable positions.
But right here, this is what changes, what I feel changed the outcome of the game. The Sao here got spotted early, and our Yamato was ready to capitalize, had his turrets turned, everything. He wasn't even spotted for very long. And you can't hear voice comms, but I believe Klein, our Yamato player, got a double or triple citadel off of that, which instantly changes how they're going to think about pushing. Now they can't take a 2v2 fight and come out on top with some skill and RNG luck.
And here's another example of kiting in action. This is Grusky during a clan battles match. He's in a Hindenburg on Sleeping Giant. He is alone on the east flank. There's a Hindenburg on the 7 line just leaving the home cap. There's a Moskva on the 9 line that is starting to push down aggressively. You're going to see how one boat is able to hold off 2 of them long enough that his team can push the enemy flank back on the west and turn around and help him against the Hindenburg. And eventually the Moskva does chase him down to the map's edge and kill him, but by that time the game is pretty much won. The Moskva is so far out of position that he is of no use to this match at all. So that is how one boat kiting can be very, very effective to the overall objective of the game, even though they may not achieve the most damage or the most kills. Another topic that was discussed last night was focus firing. It is something we do not see enough of in Bravo, and all it takes is for somebody to hit the F3 key, designate a target, and get multiple sets of guns on them. Once you start setting fires, even the biggest of battleships will fall very, very quickly. It is something that is very important to the success of your team, to be able to designate a target and take that set of guns out of the game as quickly as you can. We also talked about the term shot caller, because the shot caller isn't necessarily the person who designates a target. Anybody can do that if they're doing so competently. You may choose the lowest health boat, you may choose somebody who has put themselves into a very bad position, a battleship that is overextended, a destroyer that has run aground, things like that, and anybody can point that out. The actual shot caller in a match would be more like the admiral of a fleet. They'll decide at the beginning of the match who goes east, who goes west, what the general strategy of the game is going to consist of. They may later on in the game make an administrative decision that, the team has to do this or the team has to do that because it's a win or loss situation at that point. But generally, the better teams will not leave all of this to one person because there's just too much going on for one person to micromanage 7 boats. This creates a necessity for players to be more involved in leadership roles because when it comes down to all 7 players being involved in the decision making of what goes on after the battle starts, you need to have everybody on the same page. They need to practice together. You need to know what your teammates are doing so that you don't have a bunch of bickering and arguing, and then you go back to square one where you rely on one person to micromanage 7 players. Communications are also a key thing in terms of what gets communicated to your team and what is just junk getting spouted out. Things like DCP being used is an important thing to note when you have somebody that can put a ship on fire and have that permafire burn them down. RPF sometimes doesn't need to be specifically said, but just pinging the map, your team should know that you see something there. Big changes in strategy. If you are on the off flank, so if you are the weak side of your team and you're getting pushed by a heavier force or you see nothing there at all, you need to relay that to your other commander on the other side of the map so that they know what's going on so that they can make their informed decision. Another key thing is to communicate big changes in strategy. If you're pushing, make sure you tell the people around you, hey, I'm pushing, you guys need to move with me, and make sure they acknowledge too. It's a very big courtesy to tell your teammate, hey, I gotcha, I heard you. Hit the F4 key, something so that they don't go in alone and then end up overextended, losing a boat and potentially the match. The same goes if you turn around and kite away, also communicate that. Basically, any big change in the gameplay, you should always communicate that with the people that it's going to affect. If you're an experienced player and you have some newer players on your team, whether they're new to clan battles or just new to working with you, it's always a good idea to keep an eye on what they're doing as well, because sometimes they may find themselves overextending or at a position, and the sooner you can catch that, the better it is, because you can either fix it on the fly or it identifies something that needs to be addressed later on, like in a practice or after the battle. I'm not going to drag this out any longer. We've shown some examples and talked about Wednesday's object lesson for practice, which was our kiting, stern tanking. We've even touched a little bit on keeping stealth, about finding the right position before we start opening up our guns and getting detected. We've talked about communication, about the shot caller, and I think that's where we should end off this week. If you guys have any suggestions or comments about the video or things that you want to see in the video or in next week's practice, let me know and we can work with you on that. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to Grusky and thanks for Zika for the help on the clips and the content for the video. And I hope to see everybody at our next practice. Cheers.